joining us on our webinar for Friday. Thank you. And just before I hand over to Vuyo, I would just like to go over some housekeeping rules. Please ensure that your microphones are muted and your camera are off during the presentation to minimize background noise and distractions. Thank you. And over to you, Vuyo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nobuntu. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, valued partners, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this joint webinar presentation focused on the future of the green economy. As we've gathered here today, it's important for us to recognize the undeniable shift towards sustainable, eco-friendly practices that are reshaping industries worldwide. This transition has not only sparked innovation and progress, but has also presented an opportunity for inclusivity and economic empowerment, especially in emerging sectors for businesses that have historically been underrepresented in the market. The Jobs Fund's commitment to fostering growth and development extends to supporting SMMEs in the green economy. This commitment is driven by the need to create a more inclusive and sustainable economic landscape, one where businesses can thrive while contributing to the preservation of our planet. The green economy, with its focus on renewable energy, sustainable practices, and environmentally conscious innovations, holds the promise of being the industry of the future. It brings forth a wave of transformative opportunities, job creation, and economic growth, paving the way for a more sustainable and resilient economy. In today's webinar, we are honored to welcome the Green Outcomes Fund, our esteemed partner who shares our vision and commitment to the green economy. The Green Outcomes Fund has been a key player in supporting SMMEs working in the green economy, ensuring that their innovative solutions and sustainable practices receive the backing they deserve. Through our partnership with the Green Outcomes Fund, we have witnessed firsthand the impact of their efforts in the pilot projects that they have spearheaded. Today, they will share with us invaluable experiences and lessons learned from these initiatives, shedding light on the pivotal role that they have played in propelling the green economy forward. So as we delve in the significance of the green economy, it is essential for us to consider the global landscape. The rise of the green economy is not confined to a single region, but encompasses a worldwide movement towards sustainable practices and environmental stewardship. From renewable energy investments to sustainable agricultural practices, the green economy is swiftly evolving and beckoning us to join this transformative journey. Furthermore, the importance of the green economy holds particular significance for a sunnier climate such as South Africa. With an abundance of natural resources and a climate conducive to renewable energy production, South Africa stands poised to harness the full potential of the green economy. This presents a unique opportunity for us to embrace sustainable solutions, foster innovation, and drive economic growth, while safeguarding our natural environment. Next slide, please. Next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to share with you a brief background of the Jobs Fund. The Jobs Fund is a national treasury program and was capitalized in 2011 with 9 billion rand to uncover and pilot innovative job creation models on a co-funded basis. Its mandate is twofold: to test innovative job creation models and to share lessons and good practice, thus promoting wider market adoption of scalable and replicable models. The fund was established in a context of high levels of unemployment in the country. However, the fund was never meant to be a mass employment creation program, but rather government's research and development capability with respect to job creation interventions. The Jobs Fund deploys the Challenge Fund instrument to test job creation models and identifies through experimentation solutions that can eventually be replicated and scaled. Through the Challenge Fund instrument, we are able to draw on the most competitive ideas and the latest innovation from across economic sectors. We are able to partner with capable and experienced intermediaries such as the Green Outcomes Fund, bringing their expertise and networks to bear on solving some of our most difficult challenges in the country. We are also able to leverage public funds to crowd in significant private sector and other resources in order to maximize investment in social impact. The Jobs Fund complements other government programs that aims to, and that the Jobs Fund complements other government programs which aim to address earning and employment challenges by encouraging innovation that supports long-term sustainable job creation. The Jobs Fund has from inception recognized the importance for any government program to be able to monitor and systematically estimate its impacts. This is especially so in the context of constrained fiscal resources. The Jobs Fund therefore has a rigorous monitoring and reporting and evaluation framework which supports the fund's learning and dissemination agenda. The aim of the Jobs Fund therefore is to be catalytic in the market. The fund aims to pilot innovative job creation models to test their viability and once proven to replicate and scale these for the benefit of our economy, our communities, and the unemployed. Ladies and gentlemen, before I introduce our guests, speakers today, I urge you to immerse yourself in the discussions that lie ahead, to glean insights from the experiences of the Green Outcomes Fund, and to envision the collective impact we can achieve in advancing the green economy. Next slide, please. As you see on your screen on the right, we have two speakers. First up, I would like to introduce Ms. Yashna Maharajh. Ms. Maharajh is an experienced professional with over 12 years of expertise in environmental health and safety. As a project manager at Green Cape's Green Outcomes Fund, she drives positive environmental change through impact-based outcomes, specializing in renewable energy and the circular economy. Yashna's skill in environmental compliance and stakeholder collaboration has made her a leader in measuring and managing the impact of climate-related projects. Our next speaker, Mr. Jonathan First, is a seasoned professional with over 26 years of experience in investment banking and development finance, specializing in impact investing and climate finance as a senior advisor to the Climate Policy Initiative. With a strong background in infrastructure project finance and a remarkable track record in leading initiatives such as the Development Bank of Southern Africa's first Green Bank and the Green Outcomes Fund, Jonathan is at the forefront of driving positive change in the financial landscape. As the chairperson of Africa's first outcomes-based fund and a founding member of South Africa's Impact Investment National Advisory Board, Jonathan continues to shape the future of sustainable finance. Jonathan and Yashna, we are very pleased to have you with us today. And without further ado, Yashna, I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Vuyo, for that wonderful introduction. We are dialing in from sunny Cape Town, and being a Friday afternoon, I think we're ready to dive right into it. Please, can we have the first slide? So the Green Outcomes Fund is the first of its kind model in Africa, and we have partnered with local fund managers to increase investments into SMMEs on an outcome-based model where we pay for green jobs created and provide an incentive for that through the Green Outcomes Fund. As we know, SMMEs are the backbone of the economy, and they also contribute to development in the social sector through their involvement with communities in and around their operation. They also contribute significantly to the environment and sustainable practices. However, these SMMEs face a lot of challenges when it comes to upscaling their operation and growing their businesses. To overcome these challenges, or to help overcome these challenges, the Green Outcomes Fund was developed as a finance solution to pay for outcomes achieved and to support the growth of these SMMEs and through affiliation, the green economy as well. Please can I have the next slide? Thank you. The impact that the Green Outcomes Fund is trying to achieve is an increase in job creation. We also want to support green SMMEs that contribute to low carbon projects and operations. And this is in line with the Paris Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals as well. The Green Outcomes Fund is positioned to catalyze investments into green SMMEs and as a result, grow the green economy through the green investment sector and job creation as well. Next slide, please. Our purpose is to incentivize local fund managers and allow them the opportunity to create finance models and increase their investments in green SMMEs. We fund and catalyze SMME investments and provide an additionality by creating a model that's feasible for investment decisions. The Green Outcomes Fund is a blended finance solution and looks at combining private and public sector funding or capital in order to support growth and investment in the green economy. Next slide, please. So what we have here is a model or structure of how funding is crowded. You will see we have grant funding of 67.8 million rand. That is a combination of public and private sector funding that is received from Jobs Fund and RMB combined. And this funding, grant funding, has catalyzed a commitment of 278.4 million rand from the private sector. These come from local fund managers, which include Edge Growth, IDF Capital, CI Ventures, and Mergence Investment Managers. And you will see that there's a 4:1 ratio of the private sector funding that's been committed is to the grant funding that has been committed from the public sector as well. So in total, we have managed to crowd 346.2 million rand of funding that is used to support green SMMEs and the growth of these green SMMEs. Can I have the next slide, please? This is the current structure and model of the Green Outcomes Fund. And you'll see the main stakeholders here are the grant funders, which is Jobs Fund and RMB. We have the Green Outcomes Fund Trust as well. And we have the fund managers, as well as the green SMMEs. So SMMEs would receive investments from the fund managers, as you'll see the arrow pointing down, indicating that there's a flow of funds from the fund managers to the green SMMEs. And as a result, these green SMMEs will report on the outcomes that they achieve as a result of this funding. The information flows up to the grant funder, and once these green outcomes are verified, then the grant funder releases a payment to the trust, which then releases a payment to the fund managers in support of the green outcomes that have been achieved as a result of their investments. We also have supporting components. So we have the Advisory and Investment Committee for the Green Outcomes Fund. We also have Knowledge Partners, which is Bertha Center, that provided support at the beginning of the project. Green Cape is also a design partner of the Green Outcomes Fund and contributes to M&E verification and technical expertise. Please, can I have the next slide? These are the 13 green metrics that we use in the Green Outcomes Fund to measure impact. So you will see that they are job indicators, and to date we have created 492 direct permanent jobs, and this translates to 280 indirect jobs in the green sector. We measure indicators with the assistance of our in-house technical experts at Green Cape. We measure these indicators in the agricultural, energy, waste, and water sectors. In the agricultural sector, we measure indicators such as the soil organic carbon and synthetic chemical fertilizers. In the energy sector, we measure the number of persons reached with reliable clean energy. We measure energy efficiency, as well as energy generated. In the project so far, we have measured 168 gigawatt hours of energy that has been saved as a result of the SMMEs and their participation. In the circular economy sector, we measure waste avoided to landfill, and to date, we've created an impact of 245,562 tons of waste that has been avoided from landfill. We also measure avoided waste incinerated, chemical recovery, and lastly, waste recycled, where we have measured 13.2 tons of waste that has been recycled and removed from the environment. In the water sector, we also measure water intensity and wastewater treated. To date, we have recorded 1,000 cubic meters of water that has been saved through the SMMEs in the project, and also 19,347 cubic meters of wastewater that has been treated within the project itself. Next slide, please. This is the Green Outcomes Fund flow model, and this basically indicates the flow of processes in how we structure the model itself. It all begins with funding commitment that takes place between the catalytic fund managers or finance partners, and they commit to grant funding to green SMMEs. And once that process takes place, then the Green Cape team interjects, and we have conversations with fund managers as well as green SMMEs, and we agree upon green outcomes that can be achieved in the project duration on the onset of the project. These targets are also set with the input from our experts in-house, where they have knowledge of sector-related trends, and we basically set job creation targets and outline green indicators that the SMME will monitor throughout the project duration based on the sector that they belong to. From that, fund managers invest into green SMMEs, and green SMMEs go on to perform and create the impact that was initially agreed upon. There's also monitoring and evaluation that takes place, and the outcomes that are achieved by these green SMMEs are then reported. They are then verified as well by the Green Outcomes Fund. And once the verification process has been completed, then there is a disbursement that takes place of grant funding that goes to fund managers for these outcomes that have been achieved. In the pilot project, the outcomes that were paid for were green job creation. And then the process continues where there is continuous investments from the CFPs to green SMMEs, and they also go on to achieve the green outcomes further. Next slide, please. This is the investment and advisory committee that we have in place with the Green Outcomes Fund. Jonathan, that's here with me, is also the chair of the Green Outcomes Fund, and he is also the senior advisor on the Climate Policy Initiative. We have Deepak Patel from the Presidential Climate Commission, and we also have Megan van Vlaanderen, who is the CFO of Green Cape. We have Tanya van Lille from Meteor, and we have Saran from WWF. The committee is responsible for policy, strategic vision, and business development of the Green Outcomes Fund. Next slide, please. Just zoning in onto Green Cape. So Green Cape is a non-profit organization. We were established in 2010, and we're a sector development agency that was initially established by the Western Cape province and Western Cape government. We see ourselves as the intermediate interface between businesses, investors, academia, and government, and we help to unlock investments in the green sector and also to increase job creation potential in the green sector. So impact that we've created so far is that we have facilitated the investment of 42 billion rand into the green economy. We have also enabled 19,000 jobs in the green sector to be created. And we're also one of the members of the African Clean Tech cluster. Next slide, please. The trust, the Green Outcomes Fund Trust, is affiliated with Stonehage Fleming. Stonehage Fleming is an association that manages the administration process on the trust. So they are a completely external party that assists with managing the trust. They have an international footprint, and they have practices in Europe, Middle East, and Africa as well. Next slide, please. So this slide basically encapsulates some of the challenges that are experienced by green SMMEs and fund managers, and the Green Outcomes Fund structure and how we respond to these challenges. So the first point with regards to green SMMEs is local investor interest. And we realize that this has been low for the green economy and the green sector. And by providing the incentive or subsidy for green investments, we have attracted the interest of fund managers. There's also a lack of business development support and technical assistance that green SMMEs do experience. And through the outcomes payment that is offered in this model, fund managers are encouraged to use this to further support SMMEs. And I'll touch on this a little bit more on my next slide. Limited access to market. Through the participation of green SMMEs in the Green Outcomes Fund model, they have been exposed to other networks of funders and other support systems. For instance, we've had Anglo-American Foundation that contributed funding towards post-investment support for green SMMEs on the Green Outcomes Fund. We have identified through that project that some of the challenges that SMMEs face when trying to upscale their business is in the marketing sector, the ability to recruit and acquire necessary skills, also research and development and streamlining their operation. And through their involvement in this project, green SMMEs have been able to access further support to unlock these challenges, unlock opportunities that prevent these challenges. Further challenges that we have identified for fund managers in this sector is the high startup cost for innovative strategies, in the green strategies to be specific. And we have provided the subsidized or grant funding for green investments attached to the outcomes achieved as a response or to provide support for this challenge. A lack of quality green SMME pipeline. So through affiliation with Green Cape, we are also involved in other projects which include the Green Pitch Challenge and the CFA event, which is Climate Finance Accelerator, that is funded by the UK government and provides support for low carbon projects. And this can be in the form of technical assistance or marketing or whatever SMMEs require support in. We create a platform where SMMEs are allowed to showcase their project. And we also invite funders into the room as well to initiate conversations between the green SMMEs and the investors. And in that way, we contribute to building a green pipeline for the fund managers. Limited technical understanding of green issues is another issue that green SMMEs face, as well as fund managers. And Green Cape, with their experts in the sectors, the wastewater, energy, and agricultural sectors, have provided technical support and assistance to fund managers to better understand the green sector and become more confident when investing in these sectors. Please can I have the next slide. So this slide encapsulates the uses of the green outcomes funding that is received by the fund managers. And the idea is to use this model to further support SMMEs by using the grant funding that they receive. So there are 5 mechanisms that we outline for fund managers to use the grant funding, which is business development support and technical expertise. And this is largely a contribution of time of fund managers to SMMEs to provide them with guidance and perhaps business development support. We also encourage on-lending and reinvesting in SMMEs. And what we've seen a lot of in the pilot phase of this project is the subsidized cost of capital and the innovative pricing models. So here we've seen a lot of models where fund managers have used the grant subsidy and put this forward as interest-free loans to SMMEs to support growth. Innovative pricing models have also been attached to fund managers creating other interesting pieces where they include social development targets in their investment contracts with SMMEs. And once these targets have been met, they offer a reduced interest on loan to these SMMEs, also supporting further SMMEs in an unconventional way. Please can I have the next slide? So here we've encapsulated some of the successes of the project that we've seen. And a large part of it is behavioral changes from fund managers. And a lot of fund managers that we brought on board would not necessarily participate in the project investing in in the green sector. But we have managed to change that narrative. And some of the fund managers have indicated that the green SMMEs that they have invested in have outperformed other SMMEs within their portfolio, especially during the COVID period. We've also seen fund managers willing to commit 30% of new funds that they would be associated with, where they would be able to contribute 30% of those new funds into the green sector and green investments. So there has been a large shift in behavior and thinking from fund managers to think about investing in a lot more green projects. Deepening the green sector knowledge. And here again, it's Green Cape's ability to support the Green Outcomes Fund and support CFPs and SMMEs by creating a deeper understanding of the wastewater, energy, and agricultural sector. And here, just being able to allow them the ability to understand the sector, become more confident in the investments into these sectors, as well as assisting SMMEs to measure their own value in terms of the impact they create, the green impact that they create. And we've seen them also indicating that the green impact and understanding the impact has influenced the way they see business in terms of the number of funded engagements that they're able to have, as they see that measuring their green impact has intrigued a lot of funders based on the impact that they're now creating. Innovative pricing models, as mentioned in my previous slide, CFPs have been very creative in how they've utilized this funding model, and they have offered interest-free loans to high-performing SMMEs, as well as the interest reduction on some of their investments to SMMEs that are willing to perform and outperform their existing targets. The Green Outcomes Fund pilot project has been the basis of developing the next phase of the project. We have had a lot of learning lessons in terms of the administrative process, the impact reporting, and other sector analysis. And these learnings and development in the pilot project have also resulted to how we better and improve the next iteration of this project. Something that I haven't included in this slide is also some of the success stories of the SMMEs that we are currently investing in. And what we have seen in terms of the growth when they receive investments is we've seen some of them increase their workforce of more than 50% of what their original workforce was. In addition to that, we've also seen revenue growth in these SMMEs, anywhere from between 10% to 100%, where they're almost doubling their revenue as well. So we have seen significant growth for green SMMEs that have received investment support through the Green Outcomes Fund. Next slide, please. So these are some of the learning lessons that we've learned through the project. And first and foremost is definitely understanding the different jobs in South Africa. So the Green Outcomes Fund project was basically, we were required to measure permanent and direct jobs, which is an indicator one for the jobs fund. But this impact, however, excluded the other types of job that we've come across, which is the temporary jobs, part-time jobs, and the livelihood sustain, which is more the informal jobs that are created. These are the types of jobs that are more likely in the SMME sector. However, they were excluded from the total impact of this project. And if we had to include those jobs created in addition to the permanent jobs, we land closer to 1,100 direct jobs being created. Permanent job creation and lags in investment. So what we have also witnessed is that from the point of investment, there is a lag to the point, a time lag between the jobs created. So when an investment is made, it can take anywhere between 3 months to 2 years to create jobs or to see a spike in job creation. Reporting requirements has been another learning lesson for us. I think the reporting requirements, the input that we've had from fund managers and SMMEs is that the reporting requirements were quite onerous. This has deterred some of the CFPs and SMMEs from participating. But in addition to that, it's also increased the time constraints on them and the cost of hiring further administrative help in order to meet these reporting requirements. We've also observed that SMMEs that received funding or investments in the intermediate growth phase were more likely to have a higher growth curve in terms of job creation than SMMEs that received investments and that were in the early stage of SMME growth. Another point that we've also learned is that it is critical to the project to understand GOF benefits in relation to CFP decision making. And here we've seen that where mandates didn't align between the outcomes fund model and the business partners, and the fund managers, we've seen CFPs like business partners exit the project early, or other CFPs creating fewer investment opportunities. Next slide, please. So these are the last 3 learning lessons that I'd like to point out. Also looking at the bank account uses. So local investments or requirements of the project was to use secondary bank accounts to demonstrate the flow of investments from fund managers to SMMEs. These secondary bank accounts were required to be South African bank accounts. However, this provided a limitation to the project because a lot of the fund managers that participated in the project also managed international funds that did invest into local SMMEs. But as a result of the limitation of considering only secondary bank accounts that were South African, we weren't able to wholly consider all of the investments that flowed into South African SMMEs, particularly from foreign bank accounts. So had we been able to consider foreign bank accounts and the flow of investments here, we would have been able to report a larger impact on investment. Grant funding allocation per CFP. So here the Green Outcomes Fund contracting and operation procedure were pretty rigid, and this prevented the project from allocating funding or grant funding rather from fund managers that underperformed to fund managers that were more successful. There were a lot of timeframes involved in this process and is likely to be a risk factor for future projects as well. Outcomes Fund was also paid directly to CFPs, and SMMEs only received benefits of the project based on the discretion of the CFPs. So again, we want to create more financial benefits for the SMME, and in a way, the discretion was, we need to mitigate this in future models of the project. So that's my part of the presentation, and please can we have the next slide? So I'm going to hand over to Jonathan, and Jonathan is going to present to you key differences in GOF version 2, which is the next iteration of the project.
Thanks very much, Yashna. I think that represented a very good background. So I want to introduce 3 concepts, which I think are very important in terms of the next part of the presentation. So the one is pioneer, the other is perfection, and the other one is learnings. So I think, we are very grateful to the Jobs Fund because they were the pioneers to set up what is in effect the first outcomes-based program in Africa. Now, outcomes-based programs are very, very important because what it does is it takes out the cynicism by investors. So, the green economy, job creation, economic development, there's a certain amount of skepticism by traditional funders or investors. So what you say to them is you say, right, you can be as skeptical as you like, but if there's no outcome, well, you don't have to pay for it. So you immediately put to bed that cynicism or skepticism from investors. And I think that's why until, green becomes mainstream in a country or in a region, that is why I think the outcomes-based payments are so important. So once again, I go to this concept around pioneering, and that Jobs Fund enabled us to pioneer. But like everything that's pioneered, it's never perfect. So we are at a very important crossroads in the sense that we have just reached the sort of end of what we call GOF 1, and we're in the process of developing GOF 2. So we have taken what didn't work, but also understood what does work. And we've used this to craft GOF 2. And what I'd like to do now is go through where we see the differences. And also what I'd like to stress is that we've actually tested these. So we're currently in negotiation with providers of grant funding for GOF 2. And we're well down the road with 2 of them, possibly 3, so that GOF 2 becomes a reality. So the first one, and I think this is a very important one, is that the payments are going to go directly to the SMEs. So we're going to take away this discretionary ability from the CFPs where to put the money. Now, there was this long debate of does this sufficiently incentivize the CFPs to go out and find businesses which could qualify for outcomes-based payments? And it's a very, very simple argument to that. So if we give the money directly to the SME, it effectively reduces their operating costs. So by reducing their operating costs, the SME becomes more profitable. By becoming more profitable, it improves its return to investors. And also there's far more transparency to the whole process. So that is a fundamental change, is that the payments will now be made directly to the SMEs. I think the other one, which is a very important one, is to widen the definition and what represents jobs. Because I think what Yashna brought out very clearly is that if you go beyond what was regarded as direct jobs, and you look at the jobs created in the wider context within an SME sector, it's multiples of the direct jobs. I think that was the next thing is we need to go beyond direct jobs and look at all other types of temporary jobs or indirect jobs that are created through the investments. So that's another difference that we are working on. And as I said, we have socialized with the 2, possibly 3 new funders of GOF 2. The other thing as well, and I always use this, we want to widen this to as wider audience as possible. I mean, almost like a sort of first come, first served basis. So as much as we appreciate there was, let's say, rules around CFPs, who the CFPs could be, and the ability to change CFPs, we felt that that was a disadvantage to the Outcomes Fund. So we literally want to widen this to as wide as possible. And, you know, I sometimes say, I mean, in effect, putting a billboard on the N1 and saying, if you are a green SME or you support green SMEs, phone this number. That's in effect where we want to get to. So, in fact, we had discussions with one of the more successful SME investors, no names at this stage. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to make GOF unique to them. But we felt that that would be a disadvantage because it would be very much restricted to their deal flow. So that sort of got us thinking maybe we need to widen this up to as many investors as possible. So once again, that is one of the sort of changes that we intend to make to GOF 2. Next slide, please.
I think that's the last
Is that
one.
it?
Yeah.
As I mean, in summary, it has been a good experience. It has worked. The numbers prove it. I think that as a result of GOF 1, we're now able to proceed to GOF 2. But I believe that both the funding that will be made available and let's say the catalytic effects, the additionality will be even greater than what we achieved under GOF 1. I think the other thing as well, where there are changes, and I think Yashna alluded to them, is that we want to pass on as much money as possible to the SMEs. So to the extent that we introduce, for example, the trust structure, to the extent that reporting is onerous, that takes away money which can be provided to the SMEs. So we want to reduce the cost of administration, the cost of management, as much as possible to pass it to the SMEs. Now, we didn't have a crystal ball when we started GOF 1. So I'm not criticizing the trust. I'm not criticizing the impact reporting requirements. But I think what's more important is we realized we don't need the trust and we can reduce the impact reporting requirements. So once again, I believe under GOF 2, a larger amount of the money made available can actually go to the SMEs. So I'll leave it there for now, and Yashna and myself are more than happy to take any questions if there are any.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Jonathan and Yashna, for a really, really interesting presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be opening up the session now to the floor for questions that will be coming up based on the presentation. There was a first question that Temba asked that Yashna did respond to, but I guess the essence of that question, when I read into it, Yashna, is can you give us a flavor of the type of green SMME that the Green Outcomes Fund is looking for? Right, or is looking to partner with? I mean, I know you spoke about how, for instance, SMMEs that are in the intermediate phase of their development have better traction and so forth than the earlier ones, but not necessarily to the exclusion of early stage SMMEs. Maybe you can just respond to that, the type of SMME that the Green Outcomes Fund is really looking for to support. And whilst you think about that one, Temba then had a response to your response, and he's asking, would you consider businesses who have invested in solar systems as an alternative to grid energy to avoid load shedding, which disrupts their business productivity? So in other words, would you support businesses that are going into the solar business? Is the next question. So maybe you want to take those two for now. Okay.
So before Yashna answers the question, we need to differentiate between two types of businesses. There are businesses that produce green, in other words, the company that makes the solar panels, and there's a business that's prepared to go green. Now, when I mean go green is it's a business which is not producing panels, but what they're prepared to do is relook at their utility, the way they manage their utilities, their energy, their waste, and their water. Now, of course, the preference, and where a lot of the funders, the new funders are going, is they'd rather support companies that produce green. So going to Temba's question, absolutely, 100%. Because what they're doing, what that company is doing is it's producing green as opposed to going. But I'll let Yashna give some more examples of the type of companies that we supported under GOF 1, just to put it in perspective.
Yes, so to answer Timber's question, the green metrics that I went through basically is an outline of the type of SMMEs we would support. So generally SMMEs that contribute to the wastewater, energy, and agricultural sector. And just to draw some examples from the current SMMEs in the GOF portfolio, in the energy sector, we do support SMMEs that contribute to energy efficiency in terms of lighting mechanisms or services related to that. We also have those that provide clean energy and battery storage systems, as well as smart geyser systems. So yes, solar energy is basically part of the green metrics that we will definitely measure, and green SMMEs that can contribute to definitely solar systems, to avoid pressure on the grid would definitely be part of the solution that we will look at, and the SMMEs we would consider for GOF as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Yashna. I want to recognize a couple of hands that have come up. We'll start with Tabiso Tebe. Tabiso, do you want to pose your question or comment?
Thank you, Chair. So my comment, follow-up question 1, to the type of SMMEs, green producers. Are you supporting SMMEs in hemp, like for example, building hemp bricks? Then the second question is, what type of deal sizes do you typically look at? Number 3, do you have a certain allocation for waste, for example? And the last question is, how are you, or what are you doing differently in order to increase your pool of funders? Thank you.
So,
all right.
I think,
yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
John.
Yeah, so just to put it in context, do you remember that the Green Outcomes Fund does not invest in businesses? Okay. It's to support companies that fund managers or investors that invest in business. So it's not a case of what size the business is. We need what we call the catalytic financial partner to approach us to say, we are investing in the hemp business. Remember as well, the overriding evaluation is job creation. So they will approach us and say, right, we are investing in this company that is projected to increase. So as a result of that, they're going to increase their jobs by Y or X. We will pay for that X. So it's not a case of the size of the business. We don't have qualifications of the size of the business, but rather we're very much reacting to the investment by a catalytic financial partner. The other thing we failed to mention is that we're also going to now do a staggered payment. It's not finalized, but what we're considering is as follows, and these percentages are not confirmed yet. But what we're thinking of doing is, if it's 100 Rand, we would advance 20 Rand once approved. In other words, the criteria be met. We will advance another 50 Rand when the job is created, and the last 30 Rand a year later, providing the job is still there. But it's not the person, it's the job. So that whatever that position is. So that's another thing we're thinking of as well, is that not all the money goes when the job's created, but also an incentive to make sure that the job is protected. Sorry, one of the questions there is, so you don't support those who go green. I'm not saying that. I think it's a debate we're having. I am in support of supporting businesses that go green, but at the end of the day, our funders are going to tell us what they are happy with. So yes, it's a discussion we're having at the moment. There is no debate about producing green. There is still a debate about going green. Yashna,
all right.
do you want to add any?
Oh, okay.
Yes, so
go ahead.
Just to add that on the deal sizes that we've currently had, so we've received variable amount of investments, and that depends solely on the fund manager and what their mandate is. So I would say in the range of 2 million to like 90 million is in the range that we've sometimes received for the investments for SMMEs. And hemp and waste is definitely part of the agriculture and circular economy sectors. And those are definitely SMMEs that we will consider. And to go back to Nazim's question here on the Green Outcomes Fund 2 output mechanism. So here we would still definitely be looking at dispersing grants. As Jonathan mentioned, the criteria of a 20%, 50%, and 30% payment structure is what we would use for the Green Outcomes Fund Model 2. That will definitely be outcomes based as well. It will definitely be looking at job creation, because our current funders that we are engaging with also have an affiliation with job creation more than paying for green impact. So we will be still looking at jobs as an output. However, we will broaden the scope and definition of the type of jobs we look at.
Thank you, Yashna. I'd now like to recognize two more hands that are coming through from Evelyn George. And after Evelyn, it'll be the head of the Jobs Fund, Ms. Nadra Idris. Please go ahead, Evelyn.
Thanks, Vuyo, and thanks to the presenters. I think it's quite interesting to hear how in such a short space of time you've been able to incorporate, the learnings into GOF 2. I have a follow-up question to Nazim's question. So you mentioned paying for indirect or short-term jobs. Are you also thinking about, having a differentiated kind of pricing mechanism for those kinds of jobs, indirect or temp jobs? And then the change in the mechanism to pay direct to SMEs. I just want to hear a little bit about some of the governance mechanisms around that, so with the SMEs or with the investors, how does it work? And was it difficult to convince investors to let go of that discretion? And then just if you're able to, you mentioned that, there might be savings because of this direct payment to SMEs. Any kind of estimate in terms of percentage-wise of what that might save in terms of how the model is rolled out? Thanks.
Yeah, so
Shall we take the next one quickly, Jonathan? And then you can
sure,
just respond to both. Yeah.
Yeah,
if I can remember the components there.
yeah, we address them as they come up.
Right, so investors, so far we've had no kickback as such from, the catalytic financial partners in terms of the new payment mechanism, because they still recognize the financial benefit. Governance around and the use of proceeds. You must remember as well, we're going through the catalytic financial partner. So our contract is with them. They are significant investors in the business. So it's in their interest to make sure that the money is properly utilized. Thirdly, in terms of the financial benefit. So hypothetically, say your salary bill is 30 or 40% of your operating costs, and you're paying for those jobs. What it does is it reduces probably the largest cost in your business, probably one of the largest, materials, materials and sort of salaries, wages. And that, as a result, increases the profitability or the cash flows of the business, which as a result, obviously, increases the return to the investors. I think I covered all of your questions.
Okay.
Also, just to add to that, in terms of the pricing models for the different types of jobs, we haven't actually gotten to that point. We're still in design phase of the project, but it will also be determined by the funders' interest. So if they're interested in creating more direct jobs, then that will have a higher weighing or scoring as opposed to the other types of jobs created. So it's not necessary that each of the weighting or payments or rates for each of those particular jobs would necessarily be the same.
Thanks, Yashna. Nadra, please come through.
Thank you, Vuyo. And hi, Yashna, Jonathan. Lovely presentation. Thank you for sharing your insights. My question relates to a point that Yashna made, and that was about having a pipeline of green SMEs. Yes. And, I would assume that as you begin to demonstrate success, you are able to crowd in investors. But the issue of having a pipeline of ready green SMEs, I would also imagine to some extent remains a challenge. So from your experience, what would you suggest is done in respect of building that pipeline of green SMEs, and how would we structure the funding to provide the requisite support to develop that pipeline of green SMEs? Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
It's a bit of a political question, so I'm not going to go there. But in simplistic terms, the whole thesis around opening this to as wider investor base as possible, in other words, as many catalytic financial partners as possible, should increase the pipeline. Because remember, we are not interfacing directly with the SMEs. We're interfacing with the catalytic financial partners. So using the GOF one, we had 4 catalytic financial partners. So we were dependent on the 4 and their pipeline. Now, say, for example, we open this to the widest possible audience, and we go from 4 to 15. I'm just choosing a number. You've now got the pipeline. You're now accessing pipeline based on 15 investors, not 4 investors. So I would hope that we see far more pipeline that could be that could benefit from the outcomes-based payment.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. There's a question that's come through from Mamosa, and they're asking whether you are able to share with us some of the CFPs that you've been working with for phase 1, if at all possible.
Yes, it's on the presentation itself. So I mentioned Edge Growth, CI Ventures, Mergence Investment Managers, and IDF Capital. So it's on the presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Yashna. And then I want to recognize Hezekiel. Hezekiel, please come through with your question.
Hello?
Hi. Please go ahead, sir.
Sorry, my microphone was off. No, sorry. Thanks. I've been answered. I also wanted to know the CFP partners, so I've been answered. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's see. It's
one question in the chat. Can I go ahead and answer that?
Yeah, please go ahead in the meantime, Yashna, and then we'll recognize Tabiso again.
Okay, great. So the question is regarding the measurement of carbon emissions as part of the assessment. And currently, we're not measuring carbon emissions. The 13 green metrics that we have selected is more a streamlined version of what we'd like to measure. In order for us to measure carbon emissions and then verify those emissions is quite an intensive process for SMMEs. So we're trying to keep green outcomes measurement quite light for SMMEs. At a later stage, if this is seen as a lower hanging fruit or something that's easily achievable or verifiable, then we are willing to incorporate that. But we are very conscious of the impact we're trying to measure and how onerous that is for SMMEs as well.
So I just want to put that in practical terms. And this is a very important point in terms of impact reporting. If you're going to say to an SME, you need to report to a standard, which is both unreasonable, costly, and resource intensive, they might have to go and hire 2 people to do that. So it totally negates any advantage of the sort of outcomes-based payments for job creation. So we need to be very mindful that impacting, and I say this because I work a lot with impact reporting, impact has to be very much relative to the circumstances. So if you're doing a large infrastructure project, absolutely, ask for a lot of impact reporting, verification, etc., etc. When it's a SME, please be very mindful of what is expected of them in terms of reporting. Because if it is too onerous, they will not take any money from, for example, GOF. It's just not worth their while financially.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Very, very important to remember that context. Tabiso, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Very interesting conversation here. I just wanted to ask about 3 Just 3 questions, really. What are your investments looking like? For example, we know that property sector is one of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions, you know, whether it's we're looking at bricks or just generally energy and water consumption as well as waste management. So what does your portfolio look like in that term, and what has the experience been? And then for pipeline, as a follow-up question to the DGG's comment around how you're building your pipeline, do you make use of intermediaries, and you know, what's the effect in terms of your costing and pricing? Then lastly, on the issue around reporting, are you making use of any technology, for example, such as you know, automation tools to assist in terms of the reporting requirements? Thank you.
Yeah, so you report the reporting.
So on the reporting requirements, we are not really using any tools, except for the platform that's, you know, where Jobs Fund has basically indicated where we could upload documents. So it's the GMS platform that we as the GOF entity is using, but we don't impose any platforms for reporting onto SMMEs. We use a simple Google Drive to upload documents, but we try to keep it as simple as possible and yeah, reduce the complexity for SMMEs.
I think in terms of intermediaries, well, our intermediaries are the catalytic financial partners. Those are the only intermediaries we use. So yes, I mean, that is our source of pipeline. And I forgot the third question.
So the third question, Jonathan, just to remind you, I think in essence is asking which sectors broadly are your CFPs invested in?
Well, as I said, it's...
Yeah, I think CFPs, we have CFPs like Edge Growth and IDF Capital that are quite broad in their mandate. So they consider investment in the agricultural sector, in the energy sector, and in the circular economy sector. But on the flip side, we also have SMMEs that are quite specific, CFPs that are quite specific about their type of investments, like CI Ventures, who is most likely to invest in the agricultural sector. Agriculture and waste. So it all depends on their mandate, but we have selected the 4 CFPs so that in combination, we have covered all sectors in terms of their investment.
Great. I don't see any other hands at the moment. Maybe just a follow-up last question then from my end, Yashna. Do you have a sense of the sectors that have created the most amount of jobs for your SMMEs?
Yes, so in the pilot phase, we've had a larger number of SMMEs in the circular economy space, and the circular economy sector has been the largest job creators in the project so far.
Great. Thank you very much. Colleagues, we are just 3 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm giving it a few more moments for any last questions before we move on to our closing segment. Going once, going twice. All right. Great stuff. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, so as we come to the close then of our webinar today, I want to express my deep appreciation for the insights that have been shared by our colleagues from the Green Outcomes Fund and for your participation and enthusiasm as well. We have learned about the Green Outcomes Fund's purpose, which includes incentivizing local fund managers to invest in green SMMEs and catalyze investment in emerging green businesses. The fund's achievement of leveraging nearly 280 million rand from the private sector for green SMME funding is truly commendable. This incredible support has led to successes such as the creation, of course, of over 490 sustainable green sector jobs, and all the other metrics of success that the fund also measures. The fund's response to the key challenges affecting green SMMEs in South Africa, such as low investor interest, limited access to markets, and the lack of business development support, is truly inspiring. By de-risking investment into green SMMEs and lowering the cost of supporting them through catalytic funding partners, the fund is driving meaningful change in the industry. Furthermore, the fund's efforts to address the challenges faced by South African fund managers in funding green SMMEs reflect a deep understanding of the industry's needs. This innovative approach and success in changing the behavior of fund managers and deepening green sector knowledge are definitely paving the way for the fund's second phase. We are pleased to see the lessons that have been learned from the first phase of the initiative, including the understanding that jobs lag investments, the importance of well-planned reporting requirements and budgeted for as well as the significance of aligning all parties' interests for success are invaluable. These insights will undoubtedly form the basis of the next iteration of the fund. So in conclusion, the Green Outcomes Fund's achievements and lessons learned serve as a beacon of inspiration for the entire industry. The fund's dedication of driving positive change, creating impactful solutions, and fostering sustainable growth for green SMEs in South Africa is truly exemplary. So we want to thank you, colleagues. I want to say a special word of thanks to yourself, Yashna, and Jonathan, for your invaluable contributions to our conversation today. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation. Don't forget to please take a minute to rate our session. There will be a pop-up on the chat in terms of where you can go to do that. It really takes less than a minute. But with that, I want to say thank you once again, and I want to invite my colleague Nobuntu to do the closing for GTech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vuyo, and thank you to our speakers, Yashna and Jonathan. Thank you for a very engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. As Vuyo has highlighted, please take a minute to rate your experience in the webinar today. Thank you. Have a great weekend further.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having
Thank you.
us. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Anyway, eka yona ntate ya o rate